Okay, good morning. Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, we'll start. Okay. So last class we have discussed the shuffling process, and today we'll discuss this termination criteria. Now, the termination criteria, it is very, very important for any kind of subcomputing algorithm where we have the basically the algorithm, how many cycles it will run. It is basically indicated with the help of this termination criteria, because whatever instruction will give under any mathematical instruction we generally provide under any algorithm. So there we have we need to provide the maximum number of cycles which we should run, and based on that this termination criteria is basically determined. So the termination criteria determines when to end this tuple frog leaping algorithm. So selecting a good termination criteria has an important role on the correct convergence of the algorithm. So sometimes a mathematical problem, which maybe, let us say it requires only 50 cycles, but if we unnecessarily provide that cycle, maybe the maximum number of cycle it is 100 or maybe 500, something like that. So it is basically useless because it will actually consume the computation time. So instead of that, we should provide the required number of cycles. So how to get this kind of thing? So I will just show you. Just I need to correct my board. Just a minute. Okay. So how it looks like means what is the decision criteria based on which we'll actually use this convergence characteristic. Okay. So let us say the convergence characteristic is something like this. Let us say this is this way it is gradually it is going down, and then it is completely a flat kind of. Okay. So for example, this is your number of cycles. So this
Sir,
is your
sir,
number.
is it parallel with the x-axis or what?
Here, just a minute. I think there is
Okay.
some, just a minute. I will make it a parallel to that so that you can understand clearly. There should not be any confusion. Okay. So your question is very good. This is a kind of thing. Let us see. So for example, you are getting this particular flat convergence after, let us say, 50 cycles. Okay, so this is number of cycles, and this is, let us say, this value is your the fitness function, that is the fitness value. This is the objective function here. This is the fitness value. And this is, for example, this is 100, this is 200, this is 300, this is 400, and for example, this is 500. So you are running this, let us say, up to 500 cycles, for example. So if let us say, if you provide the termination criteria maybe 100, it is more than sufficient. We will get a flat convergence within this 100. Okay, because we can see that this algorithm, when it is converging, so up to 50 cycles, this is continuously decreasing mode. Okay, and later on it becomes a flat kind of thing. So the termination criteria, it is very, very useful unless and until you provide this particular value at a proper if you choose this value at a proper way, so there will be a unnecessarily the computation time will be wasted, and you actually you will engage your computer unnecessarily. Okay, so the CPU time will be wasted basically. So the number of iteration, the amount of fitness improvement of the solution between the consecutive iterations, the number of algorithm iterations and the runtime are common termination criteria for the shuffle frog leaping algorithm. So depending upon the problem, depending upon the complexity of the problem, we generally decide that how many maximum number of iteration cycle we should provide. So user-defined parameters of the shuffle frog leaping algorithm. So the number of memplexes Z, the number of solution in each memplexes Y, the submemplex size Q, and the minimum and maximum allowable values for the leaping step size, the number of memetic evolution mu, and the criterion used to decide when to terminate the algorithm are user-defined parameters of the SFLA. This is a shuffle frog leaping algorithm. That means the user is required to provide, these are the input data basically. These are the input data. When you will run this algorithm, that time there is a basically you need to provide some input data. So this input data is required. What are the input data? The number of memplexes. Basically, it is required because how many memplexes you are going to form. The number of solution in each memplex, that is Y. So number of frogs which will be actually located within each memplex, that has to be defined. Then sub memplex size, that what is the size of each sub memplex, that means how many frogs will be there, that is basically that has to be defined. Then the minimum and maximum allowable values for the leaping step size. So what is the step size that the frog will be actually jump to another location? Then the number of memetic evolutions. So how many number of memetic evolutions you require, that is mu, and basically the termination criteria, that is the number of iteration cycles it is required. So these are the basically user-defined parameters. You are supposed to provide this parameter as an input value. So a good choice of the parameter depends on the decision space of a particular problem, and frequently the optimal parameter setting for one problem is of limited utility for any other problem. So this has to be understood clearly. So when we are actually deciding this parameter, you cannot say that this input parameter will be fixed for every problem. So let us say if you are taking some antenna design problem in electronics and communication engineering, or let us say in electrical engineering, if you are considering a problem on the let us say economic load dispatch, or let us say power system stability, any problem if you are taking, so the parameter you are choosing in different kinds of problem, so there you need to be very cautious, because in every problem this parameter setting will not be equal. It depends upon the type, the various types of problem where this particular kind will actually vary. So consequently, the determining a good parameter setting often requires experimentation with the parameter set and experience with the specific problems. So when you are choosing this parameter, so sometimes what will happen, suppose you have started a problem with a particular set of parameter, but you are not getting the desired result. Okay, you are running that program and you are not getting those results. So what will happen? Then you need to tune this parameter. So parameter tuning, it is one of the very, very important tasks, and that's why you need to do some experimentation. For that, you need to do some experimentation with this set of parameter, and finally you will basically reach to a good parameter setting. So a reasonable method for finding appropriate values for the parameter is performing is the sensitivity analysis. So sensitivity analysis is one of the method by which you can actually set your parameter, and you can basically you can tune your parameter. So this is the one of the method by which you can actually tune your parameter. So this entails choosing various set of parameters and running the SFLA with each set of parameters a number of times to account for the random nature of its solution scheme. So what you will do, you will take a set of parameter and you will run that program, and you will see that what is your output, and based on that you need to retune that parameter. So you are not getting a desired kind of thing, and so you need to retune it. So this is repeated for each set of parameters and carrying out a comparison of the solution from all runs to gain an insight on an appropriate choice of algorithm parameter. So this is this kind of thing you need to do the repeated way. So repeated way when you are doing this kind of thing. So what will happen? Finally, you will reach to a good parameter setting, and you will get a desired solution at the end. Now the pseudocode of the SFLA. So what is the actually pseudocode of the SFLA? So this whole algorithm, what we have actually discussed, this is actually represented with the help of pseudocode. So you know any algorithm, whatever may be the case. So every algorithm, it has some pseudocode. So first of all, you need to understand the background of the algorithm. What is the philosophy of that particular algorithm? And later on, you have to understand what is the pseudocode. And finally, you need to code it in the maybe any language. So preferably, if you use the MATLAB, that is a very good platform where you can actually get this kind of problem. The instruction will be the minimum number of instructions are required. Computation time will be less. So that is basically MATLAB is extensively worldwide. It is used for any kind of applications. Now, what are the steps of this pseudocode? First, you have to begin, then input the parameters of the algorithm and initial data. So I have told you there are certain input data you are supposed to enter. So unless and until you provide these data, the algorithm will not be able to proceed. So let Z is the number of memplexes, Y is the number of frogs in each memplex, mu is the number of memetic evolutions, Q is the sub-memplex size. So M will be equal to, what is the M? That is basically the initial possible frogs. So that will be Y into Z. So because Z is the number of memplex and Y is the number of frogs in each memplex. So the total number of frogs will be Y into Z. Now generate M initial possible frog solution randomly and evaluate their fitness. So fitness, you know, that is your objective function, the functions you are going to minimize or you are going to maximize. So everywhere this fitness function will be there, and based on the fitness function, you are supposed to calculate what is your actually desired problem. So what?
Sir, hello.
Yes.
Sir, what is the role of mu?
Correct. I have explained this number of memetic evolutions in last class. Have you attended that class, last class?
Sir, no, sir. I was not.
So that's why I think, anyway, I will just tell you. The
Okay, sir.
memetic evolution means, see, this meme is the basically, it is the main information which is actually transmitted between different frogs. Okay. So when these frogs, they will be actually located within a colony, maybe within a memplex. So the information is transmitted between the different kinds of frogs. Okay. So what is the probability of transmitting this information? This memetic evolution means, I have told you that just take an example. If you let us say listen a song, so you can let us say that song is very good. So you will share that song with your friends, okay, or your relatives, or maybe any person. Okay. So what will happen? That is the tendency that whatever things you like, that is a very good kind of thing. So you want to share it with your fellow inmates, or maybe fellow friends or fellow relatives. So maybe that is the kind of thing. So every best thing which we normally used to share. Nowadays it is this Facebook and this WhatsApp, and so many social media are there. So what is this? You are basically sharing a information which you like. Okay. So similarly, the animal behavior, when they will find some information, basically the animals, they are only searching for the food. So they are living. They are only concentrating on their food habit. Okay, that is the food where they will get actually this food. So any frog, or let us say the best frog, when that best frog has got some information from the colony, Okay, so that information is transmitted among the fellow other frogs. So this particular process, it is known as this information is the mean. This information is the basically mean, and when this information is transmitted among different frogs, among within that particular memplex or within that colony, that particular process is known as the memetic evolution. Now, these memetic evolutions, actually, there is a kind of parameter which is known as the mu, or it is basically the probability of memetic evolution. So what is the chances of probability that this information will be transmitted among the fellow frogs or the fellow inmates? So this is the basically a parameter which is the number of that is the probability. What is the probability of memetic evolution? That is basically defined with the help of this parameter. Is it clear now? The basic concept of this memetic evolution, number of memetic evolutions. Is it clear? Someone has asked this question. Hello? Is it clear? Somebody has asked this question. Hello?
So he's just disconnected. Maybe a network glitch. He will rejoin.
Okay, no issue. No issue, we'll continue. Okay, fine. So this while means there is we need to use some loop, that is the termination criteria. Normally you are familiar with this kind of loop. There is a for loop, there is a while loop, there is a if else loop. So there are different kind of looping structures. So you know this thing, I don't have to explain. But here also there is a, if you want to do this thing in the MATLAB, that is very simple kind of syntax it is used. So if you use the MATLAB platform, so actually that will be basically very much useful. So now I will tell you, I will discuss today this pseudocode. Now those who are actually interested to work on this, they can send me the request. Okay. Maybe through WhatsApp. Okay, so then only I will provide that code, because unnecessarily I don't want to discuss that code. I will share that code with those students, those who are actually really interested to do some work on this Shuffle Frog Leaping algorithm. Okay, so then I will actually share that code and you can run your program. Okay, so sort the frogs according to their fitness value. So you need to do what is the fitness you have calculated. So then you need to sort it, because sorting is the very important task. Unless and until you sort it, so then you cannot distribute those frogs among the memplexes, because we know for the maximization problem we are supposed to do some kind of let us say we need to sort it in the descending order, and if it is a minimization problem, then we are supposed to do a sorting process that is in ascending order. So this is the process when we actually sort all the frogs. So divide frogs into Z memplexes, each of which has the Y frogs. So that is basically in each memplex, there will be number of memplexes will be formed. That is the user defined parameter, because user will define that how many memplexes you are going to form. So let us say there are Z number of memplexes, and each memplex there will be Y number of frogs. So there will be total number of frogs, that is Y into Z. So for S equal to 1 to Z, so that means you are varying your 1 to Z means all memplexes. You are varying all memplexes. For Z equal to 1 to mu. So mu means your memetic evolutions, probability of memetic evolution. So choose few frogs from memplex S randomly and make a sub memplex. So I have told you that every frog, they don't have the ability to form the sub memplex. So in everywhere. So the best one will be given the chance to form a, let us say, a sub memplex, because whether that particular frog has the ability to run that particular small submemplex, that has to be judged. So that is basically deciding deciding parameter is the memetic evolution, probability of the memetic evolution, that is known as the mu. So again, what we'll do, so improve the worst frog of the submemplex, worst according to the best frog of the submemplex and best, and update its fitness. So what will happen? So you can remember that I have discussed that thing. When you are forming a submemplex, so formation of the submemplex, it is dependent on again from the best frog base frog will be allowed to form the submemplex, because base frog and along with the next base and next to next base, like that, it is those frogs will be allowed to form the basically submemplex, because everybody cannot form that, because whether those frogs are useful or they will be able to update all this information properly or not, that is basically the criteria why all the frogs are not allowed to form the submemplex. Now, after forming the submemplex, what will happen? Each frog, each wasp frog, they are given the chance to update. They are given, because within each submemplex also there will be some wasp frog. There will be a best one, there will be some wasp one. So that is a common thing. If you have some number of let us say a few frogs are there, so within that frog there will be some best one and there will be some worst one. So every worst frog will be given the chance to update their performance. So based on which that particular worst frog will update, based on the best frog which is present within the submemplex. So the best frog within the submemplex will influence the worst frog, and worst frog will try to update their performance from the best frog. So update its fitness value. So what will happen? The worst frog will try to improve its performance. If there is no improvement in the worst frog, just a minute. Hello. Okay. So we need to see whether there is any improvement. If it is improved, then we'll update that wasp frog. If there is no improvement of the wasp frog, then what will you do? So improve the wasp frog of the submemplex in wasp according to the base frog in the population and update its fitness. So I have told you the last class, those who have attended, because again, just a minute. Hello. Yes. Yes, ma'am. No. Everything fine. Everything fine. No. She attended all the exams, so there is no issue. No issue. I think you'll be getting the update in the portal also. I think in the evaluation or something like that. That is your process. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this there are three let us say alternative process by which you can actually update the wasp frog. First is the updation of the wasp frog from the base frog which is present within the submemplex. The second alternative strategy, it is the base frog from all the population, base frog from all the population, based on from the base frog of all the population. The wasp frog will get basically all the update, or it will be influenced by the performance of the that particular base frog from all the population. And third one is the randomly generated. So I have told you this thing. So this is the second alternative strategy. So that's why it is improve the wasp frog of the submemplex in wasp according to the base frog, the population embased, and update its fitness value, and then end it. Then third stage, if there is no improvement in the wasp. So this is the third alternative steps. Generate a random frog to replace the wasp frog of the submemplex and evaluate its fitness. So again, what we'll do, we'll generate a random frog to replace the wasp frog. Because sometimes we find that that particular wasp frog, it is no way it is updated, or it is influenced by the base frog within the submemplex, or Second thing is that it is not getting any influence or any updation or improvement from the base frog for the all population. So then the third alternative state, it is that we need to discard it. We need to discard it and it will be replaced by a randomly generated frog. Okay, so that means generate a random frog to replace the host frog of the submembranes and evaluate its fitness. So then after replacing it by a new one, again we'll calculate basically the fitness value. Next test. So that means it will proceed. Next J and next test means next J is what? J is your next memetic evolution. That means 1 to mu it will vary. So it will be next. And the next test means next memplex it will proceed. Each memplex this process will be carried out. Combine all memplexes. After carrying out, see, first we'll distribute all the frogs among all memplexes. Then what we'll do? We'll take all the frogs from all the memplexes and then we'll combine all these memplexes. So that is the task. And then while. So we'll complete this particular end as a while loop. The end will be completed and report the best solution. So then we'll calculate that what is the best solution and then end. So this is the basically this pseudocode of the shuffle frog leaping algorithm. So any doubt from this particular pseudocode? Anyone? Any doubt? Any doubt from it?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, do you really require this MATLAB code? Do you really require? I have this code. Okay, it is available. Okay.
So actually, we don't have the MATLAB in our system. So can we get when the college reopens so that we can practice?
Definitely. You see, we have given the notice on from 20th onward. You will be able to join this. You can stay within the hostel from 20th onwards. So maybe in the month of January also you can come and you can get it. Okay, because MATLAB, getting MATLAB, it is not a very big issue because you can get it from anyone. Okay, and yes, you can run in the college also. You can run this program. That will be very useful.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so we are actually end of the shuffle frog leaping algorithm. Okay, so now I will share this next thing. In your exam, you will get the questions from the shuffle frog leaping algorithm, and second thing is your particle swarm optimization. So these two things, these two optimization algorithm, you will get the questions in the first slot test. Now next we'll start the BAT algorithm. Again, the concept, I told you that everywhere there is these living beings. Living beings are there, animals, various kinds of animals are there, and their behavior it is analyzed, and based on that, a particular algorithm is proposed, or it is basically it is applied in many engineering applications. So this meta-heuristic BAT algorithm was developed by Xing-Shi Yang in 2010. Okay, so this particular scientist, actually it was developed by this particular scientist, and it was inspired by the echolocation behavior of microbats. Have you seen the bat? Anyone? Do you have any idea? Bat.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this particular algorithm, it is developed based on the behavior of these particular animals, that is the bat. It is the first algorithm of its kind to use frequency tuning. So here the concept of frequency tuning, it is used, and we'll see that how this frequency tuning is used. So bats are fascinating animals. They are the only mammals with wings, and they also have advanced capability of.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Your screen is not showing proper.
Okay. I will do this. I have understood. Yes. Just a minute. Now, can you see my slide?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. So They are the only mammals with wings, and they have also advanced capability of echolocation. So we'll see first. We'll understand what is these bats, what is their behavior. See, suddenly if I told you that this is the particular equation of this bat algorithm, so you cannot understand. You will tell, sir, what you have told, that we have not understood. Okay, because we need to understand the philosophy of these particular animals. What is their behavior? How they are actually transmitting information, like whatever we have understood in the subgroup frog leaping algorithm or particle sum optimization algorithm. So here also we need to understand their philosophy. Okay, what is their behavior? So those characteristics we need to understand very clearly. So it is estimated that there are about 1,000 different species which account for up to 20% of all mammal species. So their size ranges from the teeny bumblebee bats of about 1.5 to 2 gram to the giant bats with a wingspan of about 2 meters and weight up to about 1 kg. So you can understand that how these particular animals, their size, their weights, it will vary. So microbats typically have a forearm length of about 2.2 to 11 centimeters. So this is the arm length. I will show you some pictures. I will show you. So you can just guess that what will be the those animals and how their behaviors are actually animated in terms of some optimization algorithm. So most bats use echolocation to a certain degree among all the species. Microbats are a famous example, as microbats use echolocation extensively while megabats do not. So normally there are two kinds of bats. One is the microbat, which is small kind, and megabats. Normally they don't use these kind of echolocations. Okay. So this is the actually picture of this bat. Okay, so if you can understand that what is this bat. So have you seen this bat anywhere? Have you seen physically?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Idea. You have idea. I think you have idea, so you can guess that what is this bat. Okay. So most microbats are the insectivores. So you can understand what is insectivores. Anyone can share what is insectivores? They used to eat what? Insect. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, they used to eat insect. That's why they are insectivores. So microbats use a typical type of sonar called the echolocation to detect prey, avoid obstacles, and locate their roosting crevices in the dark. See, normally in the dark, when everything is dark, so there also they used to detect their prey. So every animal beings, they always try to find their prey and predators. Do you know this? What is prey? Hindi mein boliye, so I'll be able to understand. What is prey? What is prey? Whatever you know, I will not mind. If it is wrong, then it's okay, fine. What is prey? क्या है prey? So prey is basically, that is the target or the food that particular animal used to eat. So prey and predators, these are the two things. So prey means where they actually want to locate their food. That's why that is basically prey. So there is a particular type of sonar which is known as called the echolocation. So basically these particular bats, they used to use this particular strategy, echolocation strategy, and this sonar, it is normally used in to detect any obstacles, or so that they can actually locate their prey. So these bats emit a very loud sound pulse and listen for the echo that bounces back from the surrounding objects. So आपको मैं 15 मिनट बाद फोन करता हूँ, ठीक है ना, क्लास में। So these bats emit a very loud sound pulse and listen for the echo that bounces back from the surrounding objects. So what they will do, they will send a sound pulse. These microbats, they have the habit. They will send this sound pulse. So what will happen when this sound pulse, it will hit some object, it will again return back. Okay. So when it is bounces back, then they can hear and they can guess that what is the location of that particular prey. Is it clear that what I am going to tell you? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So their pulses vary in properties and can be correlated with their hunting strategies and depending on the species. So depending upon their hunting strategies, it basically, these pulses will vary. So depending which type of prey they are going to eat, so that depends on that is particular depending on that. So most bats use short frequency modulated signals to sweep through about an octave, while others more often use constant frequency signals for echolocation. So different bats use their different kind of frequency signals. Okay. So depending upon the type of prey, depending upon the type of this size of these bats, the particular type of these frequency signals are used for the echolocation. So their signal bandwidth varies with species and often increases by using more harmonics. So you can understand this particular sonar, or which is used for the echolocation, which is actually varying with the different types of species and different types of prey. So the signal bandwidth, it is normally it varies. So these particular animals, they are actually adapting this frequency tuning or frequency modulation kind of techniques to hunt their prey. So study shows that microbats use the time delay from the emission and detection of the echo. The time difference between their 2 ears and the loudness variation of the echoes to build up the three-dimensional scenario of the surrounding. So they will basically, what they will understand, they are sending some signal, it is going back, it is coming back. So, and what is the loudness of that particular signal, that is also again another parameter to decide how means where this particular prey is located, because they can understand that what is the location of that particular prey depending upon the particularly what is the time difference and what is the loudness of that particular signal. So they can detect the distance and orientation of the target, and the type of prey, and even the moving speed of the prey, such as small insects. So indeed, studies suggest that bats seem to be able to discriminate targets by the variations of the Doppler effect induced by the wing flutter rates of the target insects. So it is normally we know that what is Doppler effect, but these particular animals also use this kind of basically this effect is also observed particularly for this phenomenon. So through each pulse only lasts a few thousandths of second up to about 8 to 10 millisecond. However, it has a constant frequency which is usually in the range of 25 to 150 kilohertz. So these particular animals, these bats, they normally used to send this particular sonar or this particular sound with a frequency of 25 to 150 kilohertz. Okay, and that you can hear within a time duration of time span of 8 to 10 milliseconds. So the typical range of frequencies for most bat species are in the region between 25 and 100 kilohertz, though some species can emit higher frequencies up to 150 kilohertz also. So there are some species, there are some bats which can also send some signals, or let us say some sound which can actually go up to 150 kilohertz also. So each ultrasonic burst may last typically 5 to 20 milliseconds, and microbats emit about 10 to 20 such sound bursts every second. Okay. So when hunting for prey, the rate of pulse emission can be speed up to 200 pulses per second when they are find near their prey. So such short sound must imply the fantastic ability of the signal processing power of bats. So you can understand how this only sound has this particular sound is they can actually detect their prey, they can understand their prey, and finally they'll be able to hunt those prey. So this particular modulating this frequency range, they will be able to diagnose that where is the location of their prey. So if we idealize some of the echolocation characteristic of microbats, we can develop various bat algorithms or BA. So for simplicity, we now use the following approximate or idealized rule. So our first rule is all bats use echolocation to sense distance, and they also know the difference between food/prey and background variance. So this particular sending this signal, they will be able to sense the distance, and this process is known as echolocation. And with the help of that, they will be able to know the difference between their food and prey and what is the background barriers. So bats fly randomly with a velocity vi at position xi. They can automatically adjust the frequency or wavelength of their emitted pulses and adjust the rate of pulses emission or depending on the proximity of their target. So they will be able to adjust this thing. So they will be able to adjust their velocity as well as their position. We'll understand step by step. Just this is the basically introductory part. So although the loudness can vary in many ways, we can assume that loudness varies from the large positive A0 to a minimum value AB. So the loudness can again, so what are the variable things? One is the frequency you can vary, and another parameter is the loudness. You can vary. Okay. So that is from the A mean to the some maximum value A max. So another obvious simplification is that no ray tracing is used in estimating the time delay and three-dimensional topography. So we'll basically continue in the next class. Okay, so this thing, but most likely next week there will not be any class because of your exam. Okay, so we'll continue this thing in the month of January. Okay, so any question from this? Because after that, most likely there will be winter vacation. We have not yet decided, but obviously there will be some winter vacation.
Sir, can you share these notes?
Huh?
Sir, can you share these notes?
Sharing these notes means these PPTs.
Yes, sir. PPT.
PPT. Okay, I think. Yeah, I'll do something for you. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, sir.
You will get in the, I think YouTube. You have seen my video. All videos are available. All
Yes, sir.
videos you can get all videos in YouTube under electrical engineering department. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
there all these lecture notes are already given. Okay.
Oh, okay, sir.
You can listen those things also. Okay. So thank you. I think I will intimate to you regarding this. You will get the links. So regarding the class, but next week there will be obviously all the classes will be suspended. Okay. Thank you. I will just take your
Thank you, sir.
just a minute. I will take your attendance. Just a minute. Okay, thank you. We'll close this meeting. Thank you.